Hi folks, my name is Brent Gotsch, Resource Educator and Certified Floodplain Manager with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Ulster County and the Ashokan Watershed Stream Management Program. I'm also on the Board of Directors for the New York State Floodplain and Stormwater Managers Association. Today we're going to learn how to read and interpret a flood insurance rate map, or FERM as they're commonly known. FERMs are used to help visualize areas that are expected to be inundated by the waters of the 1% annual chance flood, or 100-year flood as it is more commonly known. To be clear, the 100-year flood has a 1% chance of occurring in any given year, and it's just a way of talking about statistical probabilities. 100-year floods can occur more than once every 100 years. They can occur as frequently as several times a year. Again, these terms are used simply to talk about the probability that an event can occur, not about a measurement of time. It should also be pointed out that FERMs are not meant to show all areas of risk. In fact, many areas that are outside the map flood zone can and do flood. FERMs are created to show areas where holders of federally backed mortgages must purchase flood insurance, and areas that must be regulated by communities that participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, or NFIP. We'll talk more about flood insurance and the NFIP in a future video. FERMs in riverine areas are created by studying a stream's hydrology, which is the science of dealing with the distribution and circulation of water in the atmosphere, on land surfaces, and underground, as well as its hydraulics, which is a science that deals with fluids in motion, such as how water will flow through a stream channel or floodplain. In modern FERMs, like the ones we use in the Ashokan Watershed, remote sensing technologies, such as light detection and ranging, or LiDAR, are also used to pinpoint the elevation of the ground topography and water surface elevations. Land surveyors run cross-sections across several points in the stream to ground truth the elevations. This creates very accurate land and water surface elevations, which in turn allow flood zones to be accurately drawn on the map. We are very lucky here in the Ashokan Watershed because our maps use these modern technologies and were created just a few years ago. If you look at the map legend on the FERM, which is a block located in the upper right-hand corner, you can read all about the symbols and what they mean. Not every map has every symbol, since some maps are based on different types of studies, and some maps are older and use different symbology. Today I will be talking about the most common symbols that you will encounter on a map in the Ashokan Watershed. Before we go further, you'll notice that there are several different types of flood zones that you can find on a map. We'll talk more about the different flood zones in a future video. The blue or turquoise shaded area represents what is known as the Special Flood Hazard Area, or SFHA. This is the land area that is expected to be inundated by the waters of the 100-year flood. It is occasionally known as the 100-year flood zone. This is also the area that communities must enforce NFIP regulations and require flood insurance by federally backed mortgage holders. Within the SFHA, you will notice that there is an inner and an outer set of blue lines, with the inner set featuring a white cross-hatching. This space represents the area known as the floodway. The floodway is a highly regulated area where it is difficult to put new development. This is because the floodway tends to have the deepest, swiftest moving, and most dangerous water flows. The space outside the white cross-hatching is known as the flood fringe, or sometimes the floodway fringe. In this area, there are still regulations that must be adhered to, such as elevating or floodproofing structures, but new development and building can occur more easily than in the floodway. Both these spaces together make up the Special Flood Hazard Area. You'll notice an area with black polka dots. That area represents what is known as the 0.2% annual chance floodplain, or more commonly, the 500-year flood zone. This area is expected to be inundated by the waters of the 500-year flood. There is no floodplain regulation in this area, but it is still mapped because it poses a somewhat higher risk than areas located fully outside of either the 100 or 500-year flood zone. I also want to point out what I call squiggly lines that flow across the stream channel. These squiggly lines represent the approximate base flood elevation, or BFE, for that point along the stream. The BFE is the anticipated height of the water surface above sea level that waters are expected to rise during a 100-year flood. It should be noted that these maps do not show depth of floodwaters. There are other flood risk products that can help you determine flood depths. FERMs are meant only to show the breadth of the floodplain. BFEs are very important for those who are looking to either build new or refurbish existing structures in the SFHA. Minimum federal regulations say that new or substantially improved construction in the SFHA must be built to base flood elevation. New York State regulations say that they must be built 2 feet above base flood elevation. Base flood elevation for construction purposes must be built to the nearest tenth of a foot. As you can see, the squiggly lines only show base flood elevation to the nearest whole foot, and this is not adequate for regulatory purposes. We'll talk about how to find the base flood elevation to the nearest tenth of a foot in a future video. You'll notice that there are several hexagons with letters in them that go up and down the stream channel. These are lettered cross sections. These are locations where land surveyors have determined the exact land and water surface elevations for that particular point along the stream. These are the spots that will help you be able to calculate base flood elevation. Maps that have areas with cross sections are known as detailed study areas. Other spots in the map may have blue shading but no cross sections. These are known as approximate study areas and don't have ground truth data from surveyors. Regulations still apply to these areas, but different methods have to be done to calculate how high to elevate or floodproof a structure. I would now like to briefly turn your attention to the lower right-hand corner of the map. This is the title block of the firm. It contains the name of the community or communities that are shown on this particular firm, as well as their number. It has the 6-digit identification number or map number. It also has the panel number for the map panel suffix, which shows how many revisions the map panel went through. It should be noted that modern maps have been created on a county-wide basis, so that for the majority of the Ashokan watershed, the firms are based off of the Ulster County Map Index. What we are looking at right here is an individual map panel of the Ulster County firm, or map index as it is called. The title block also contains the map effective date. This is the date that the map was adopted by the community. This video is meant to be a brief introduction to understanding the basics of the FEMA flood insurance rate map. In future videos, we'll go into more detail on firms, as well as other parts of the National Flood Insurance Program. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.